You can get pallets for free anywhere, which is why in this video I am showing you 3 things you can make with them. This pallet project is unlike any other pallet project I've done. We're making a storage solution for your outdoor tools, so make sure to check the height and then cut down the pallet for the height that you want. I removed the nails and extra wood from one of the boards. I used that board and secured it to the bottom with a total of 6 screws. I used 150 grit sandpaper and I gave the whole thing a quick sand. If you wanted to take this a step further, you could definitely stain it or paint it. In order to secure it to the wall, I put a base and made sure that was level, and then I put the pallet on top of that so that I could sit on something while I secured it to the wood wall. I also used a level on top just to make sure everything all matched up because the ground was pretty uneven. And now it's ready to add your shovels, rakes, tools, whatever you want. This is what the side of our shed looked like about half an hour before, and this is what it looks like after. This project was so quick, it didn't take very long at all. It's super functional, and I definitely recommend doing it. Okay, moving on to number 2. Did it again, friend. I saved another pallet from the dump.
I don't want to punch you in the face.
You can use any type of pallet for this project, but if you want to make use of the structure itself, then you're going to want to look for a pallet that has one support down the middle and one on either side, and a nice even spacing between the pallet boards. So first I removed the back pieces, as you can tell, and then here I'm marking down the edge of these boards so that it is flush with the one support board underneath of them there. I tried cutting it with the circular saw, but it ended up just kept binding and it really wasn't working very well. So I ended up just cutting it not on the lines but further out, and then you'll see later in the video, but I tried to use the circular saw again and it still didn't work, so I ended up cutting them flush with a jigsaw. The goal here is to get the top boards flush with the side boards, and then you want to take 2 of those front boards off and remove all of the nails. I'm just testing it out here to see if the size is going to work. Some pallets are really easy to take apart, but this one was not. The nails were in there so strong. Anyways, Mr. So Bright helped me with this project. And this is the part where I was trying to make it flush, but the circular saw just wasn't working. So again, I used the jigsaw, and I'm going to fast forward through this for you. Remember that support board on the back of the pallet, the one that we cut off? Well, I used that and cut 2 legs and placed it underneath of the pallet here. And then we used a square to make a line so we could cut it so it would sit flush on the ground. I sanded the 2 legs and then we secured them to the chair, first clamping and then screwing them together.
Well, people that do this kind of stuff for a living use them.
I know, my dad's always clamping things and I'm like, this is stupid, but it's not stupid. I get it now. I'm not sure what happened to the cameraman at this point, but somehow we missed recording putting the support beams up on either side. We did use a different pallet for those, and they were 2x4 type size boards, and we secured them on either side going straight up. And then now here I'm putting on more pallet boards on the back. Will be the back of the chair. Again, clamp and screw, it will save you. Wait a minute, I stand corrected. It looks like we put up one support board and attached the front pallet board, and then we put the second support board up there. You can see I'm screwing it now. I'm using this rough 2x4 as a spacer between the slat boards along the back of the chair, and then I just kept working my way all the way up the back. I guess I got over videoing the rest of it, but we added a piece along the front. We added a piece between the legs at the bottom there as a nice solid brace. And then we also added another support piece at the back there, across the back, and gave everything a really quick sand. And I left it unfinished, but you could definitely stain it or paint it. And now I've got this beautiful pallet chair. I think it needs a few cushions, but otherwise it's good to go. This project cost me $0, so it was definitely worth it. Let me know if you give it a try. Okay, let's move on to number 3, the last one. Show you how to make the most epic project for your garden out of a pallet. I got mine from the dump. Check it out. I was really happy with this pallet that I found. It was in really good condition. So I started by taking some of the wooden slats off and save them and keep the nails in. I didn't have my spacing quite right, so I ended up taking off a few more than I would have if I spaced it out properly. I laid it down on the ground, and then I put some of the pallet boards back on top. I used the same nails and everything, and it worked great. I decided to make 3 rows, so I used 3 boards at the bottom row, 2 boards at the middle row, and then 2 boards at the top row. There was some leftover wood at the top, so I used a reciprocating saw and I just cut it off. And then I saved the boards from the top part that I cut off too. I flipped it over and I put the extra boards on the back to match up with the front, and I did have to use a couple extra scrap 1x4s for this. Next, I put a bottom on each row, and I also used scrap 1x4 for this. I put the nails in first and then put the scrap 1x4 in and hammered it in. I flipped it over and then put nails again on the other side to make sure the bottom part was nice and secure. I did a quick sand over the whole thing with my orbital sander. I stood it up and I filled the cubbies with dirt and then planted my favorite herbs. When it comes to organizing and labeling, I like to be a little extra, so I pulled my Cricut out. I used one of my new SVG files. You can get it on my website. I'll leave the link in the description. And I made some labels for my herbs. I sealed the stencil with outdoor Mod Podge. I find this works really well. And then I let it dry for about an hour, and then I painted it with acrylic paint. And then I let that dry for about 20 minutes or so, and then I peeled the vinyl off. And this is exactly what mom life is like right here. Honestly, can you guys believe I picked this palette on the dump? And now I have the most gorgeous herb garden. Links are in the description, and let me know what you think. If you love budget-friendly DIYs, hit that subscribe button, check us out on Instagram, and stay tuned for the next project.